What is up, guys, and welcome to today's 1 Minute Clinic. And before we get started, guys, please consider liking and subscribing so that we can continue to grow and build on these collaboration videos. We have officially passed 2,500, so that means we can start our first collaboration video. Also, if you want your questions answered and turned into a 1 Minute Clinic, comment down below. I add them to a list and I get to every single one. Today's question comes from Nicholas Sinasis 677. I hope I said that correctly. If I didn't say it correctly, I apologize. But Nicholas asks, can you please make a short tutorial on how to put away balls that are far inside the court? Should we hit flat or with a lot of spin to be a winner? Do we hit them on the run or do we stop and hit? Thanks. I love teaching this one because it's actually something that has a lot of variables to it. We did a video that was kind of similar a couple of weeks ago, but this one actually is different because he's asking specifically for the area that is super far inside the court. So let's get 1 minute on the clock and start today's 1 Minute Clinic. So starting with the technical aspect of this, the first thing that you want to do is decide whether you're going to hit the ball with spin or hit it flat. And what determines that is what the ball is doing when you arrive and how high the ball is. So when the ball is coming at a drop, that means we have to do a little bit of picking it up to make sure that we clear the net, especially if the ball is lower than the height of the net when we arrive. But if the ball is sitting higher than the net, that means we have a straight line towards our target, as long as you're not far back, as not what we're working on today. So if the ball comes in at a certain height that sits above the height of the net, flat becomes more of an option because you have a straight trajectory that does not get impeded by the net. But once the ball falls, you are forced to lift that ball up. So to answer the first question of should we hit flat or should we spin the ball, it depends on where the ball is when you arrive. So looking at me hit the ball that's sitting right here, I'm about on the service line. This ball is at my shoulder. So since this ball sits at my shoulder, the net's not an obstacle. That means when I go to take the shot, I can go straight through. If I was to back up a little bit where the ball's starting to fall, actually that one wasn't falling. This one should though. There we go. So if the ball's starting to fall, what I need to do is actually pick up and hit through the court. Now I can be aggressive with it, but the main focus here is what am I supposed to attempt? So tip number one, if the ball's above the height of the net, aim straight. If the ball's below the height of the net, pick it up, with one slight difference in a specific situation, which is this one. The situation in which you would not follow this rule is if you're trying to hit a shorter part of the court. So spinning the ball into that zone there, taking it high and flat is doable, but because you have such a small zone to work with, it's better to add a little bit more shape and get the ball up and off the court. That's the only one where I'd say is taking the high ball and really spinning it. Likewise, going that way, you don't need to bring that ball down. You actually want the ball to go more through the court, which would make it more difficult for your opponent. So spinning the ball would be reserved for when you go and try to hit shorter, sharper angles. And that one becomes a little bit more difficult when you let the ball fall into this zone here. So taking it high and then bringing it down works a little bit better than going low, so letting it sit here, and then trying to pick it up. Part two of that question was, should we stop or should we run through it? Again, it's one of those things where it depends, but here's how I judge whether I should run through it or whether I should stop. One thing that you have to pay attention to is how early you recognized your shot and how far you're moving from. So if I'm standing all the way in the back and then I have to make it all the way up to here, I'm bringing a lot of body weight with me, and it becomes actually more difficult to come to a full stop and then hit that shot. In those cases, what you're going to do is you're going to take what I call the left for the right-handed people. If you're hitting a forehand, you run, you get yourself sideways right as you're about to arrive at the spot, and then you kind of shuffle through and come off your left foot through the shot and continue your momentum. What that is going to take away from you, though, is the ability to adjust for ball height. You're going to have to read what that ball's doing on the way. Whereas if you can run and you're starting from closer, you usually have the ability to kind of stop, read the court situation, and then attack the shot. When you're doing the run through, I usually recommend going down the line because then you don't have to shift your body weight side to side, and it also makes it easier to cover your approach shots and be an effective volleyer because it lets you close in the gap a little bit better. So taking it back to this angle here, since I'm standing on the baseline, I would probably have the ability to run up to this ball, stop, and then take my approach. But if I was to have to go for a full sprint, I'm probably going to end up taking my body weight and not stopping. So putting myself further back behind the court, you find yourself kind of having the ability to make little adjustments but not come to a complete stop. Whereas if you were playing somebody and let's say you created the short ball and you could anticipate what was coming next, you might even hit an aggressive ball from the back of the court, but you end up kind of already taking a step or two in even before they hit the shot. So what you should do in terms of whether you run through it or not is dependent on your level of anticipation, meaning you're creating shots and you know what's coming, or just how quickly you can react to the short ball. So if you're coming from far away, you can get there early enough to stop if you know that you're creating the shot. If you're not doing that, then you're probably going to end up running through it, in which case, as you saw, you run up, and I recommend going for the shot down the line, because when you run forward, you go for your ball down the line, and then you're in the position to follow your momentum and cover your volley and then finish with there. Whereas if you were to run up and be able to be stable, your options become a little more open, because with more stability comes more accuracy. I think Uncle Ben said that in Spider-Man. But with more stability comes more accuracy. You can take your shot down the line, you can take your shot cross court, or you can generate more angle because you have the ability to push in the direction that is most advantageous for the shot you choose, versus only being able to run through, in which case running through and then trying to generate a crazy angle over here becomes very difficult. But that's going to wrap up today's 1 Minute Clinic, guys. I hope this video was helpful. If you know anybody would benefit from it, please send it off to him. Nicholas, I hope this answered your question. Remember, if you want your questions answered and turned into a 1 Minute Clinic, comment them down below. But until then, guys, I will see you in the next one.